It's a battle between two hot Android phones, and I say that all the time, but this one is going to be a hard one. I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com. This is a Samsung Galaxy S3. This is the Samsung Galaxy Nexus GSM version, but it's running Android 4.1, also known as Jelly Bean. Let's take a look in the dogfight. The battle's back on. Here are two awesome Android devices, and I feel like I say that all the time, but with Android constantly changing when it comes to software and hardware, it's a new battle every single day. On the left side, you have the Samsung Galaxy S3, new device, Samsung's current flagship. Then you have the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, Google's current flagship, because it's a stock Google device. It's a Google experience device, and thanks to Google I/O, this version is running Android 4.1, also known as Jelly Bean. So you're still running Ice Cream Sandwich over here, Android 4.0 with TouchWiz, the new version of TouchWiz. Over here, it's a stock build of Android 4.1, with some new changes which we'll talk about in the dogfight. It's an epic battle. Which one's the best? We're going to have to stay tuned and we'll find out. But first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like this for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you on the site. So when you walk into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working with either one of these devices. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your contacts, all of those little Android nitpicking settings. So when you walk out the door, you're good to go and everything's set up, and you can go to dinner and you don't have to worry about your email not being set up at Best Buy Mobile. They're super cool like that, so kudos to them. So you got these two devices, the Galaxy S3, Galaxy Nexus. Over here, you got a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED HD display, so 720p here, 4.8 inches, and it is a pen-tile display. You have an 8-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording. This is the T-Mobile version. A front-facing camera that's 1.9 megapixels, Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich with a new version of TouchWiz, and a 2,100 milliamp hour battery. Now, interestingly enough, Samsung historically has done the physical button on their international devices, and when they come to the US, they have capacitive buttons. Not the case this time around. This one has a physical button in the US version as well, though it does have that slightly different processor. The international one has a quad-core Exynos processor, but you do get 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty nice. Over here on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, you've got a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core TI OMAP processor, a 4.65-inch Super AMOLED HD display, a 5-megapixel camera, and I should point out this is pen-tile as well. 5-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording. This is the unlocked GSM variant, which I have an AT&T SIM card running in it right now. It's got a front-facing camera, a 1,750 milliamp hour battery, and like I said, Android 4.1, also known as Jelly Bean. So a little bit of a different look and feel here, just outside of everything, taking everything else out of the equation. You got two very different devices here. This one's available through Google Play. Price just dropped to $350. Jelly Bean's rolling out in mid-July to everybody else. Everybody that was at the trade show got it on their Nexus devices, which they gave away for free, but it's coming soon to every other Nexus device. Hopefully coming to Verizon Nexus users as well at the same time, though the verdict's still out. If you want it and you really want to make sure you're getting it in mid-July, I'd say go with the GSM version because we don't quite know with the Verizon one. But specs aside, all that stuff aside, you got two very different user experiences over here. You got TouchWiz over here, so you're running a skin on top of Android, and while it's one of the best skins I've ever used, this is actually my current Android device I'm using as part of a 30-day challenge, and I'm really digging this device because I think it's really polished for the consumer, for that mainstream customer. I think this is a great device to have. I really feel like this is one of those ones where I could take in anybody that's maybe a first-time smartphone user or somebody that just wants a good high-end smartphone, and out of the gate, this kind of has a fluidity and ease of use that comes very close to the iPhone. But Android 4.0 over here, new version of TouchWiz, you can see 7 home screens, and out of the gate, this is the T-Mobile version. Just to walk through some of the T-Mobile apps, you get Access T-Mobile, All Share Play, Amazon, you get Samsung's Chat On program, you get Flipboard, which was exclusive to the Galaxy S3. I believe it's rolled out now to other Android devices. Then you have Game Hub, which is a Samsung thing, Media Hub, which is also Samsung Music Hub, and then you have T-Mobile's Mobile Hotspot. You have Samsung's apps down here, and then you have T-Mobile Name ID, TV, and visual voicemail. So you do get some T-Mobile stuff out of the gate. Unfortunately, it can't be uninstalled. And then you have your widgets. So you got this breakdown between apps and widgets, much like Ice Cream Sandwich, but I like the fact that you can scroll all around the widgets all day long, and it doesn't change back over to the apps or vice versa. You can just keep scrolling between the two, and it keeps them separate. Downloaded applications over here, which I don't have any at the moment. And then over here, your shortcuts and the notifications bar. So you've got a bunch of different options here. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, sound on and off, screen rotation, and you can scroll back and forth to access those. And because this is Ice Cream Sandwich, the voicemail notification I can't remove. But if it were a text message or a missed call, I could swipe it to the side and remove it. So you have your settings shortcut right there. And then again, 7 home screens, which again, take a look at the fluidity. Despite having that Snapdragon S4 processor as opposed to a quad-core Exynos, it's still relatively fluid. The international one, slightly more fluid, but still very impressive over here on this front. So you got your power button on the right side, your micro USB charging port at the bottom, volume rocker up in the side, and then 3.5mm headphone jack on top. Over here, stock Android 4.1, also known as Jelly Bean, 5 home screens, and Jelly Bean's running something called Project Butter. Google referenced it at Google I/O. It's intended to make it fluid and faster, in a nutshell. And if you've ever talked or listened to my videos rather about Android, my frustration is always that Android just seems a little bit more laggy than competitors on the market. So in this case, Project Butter, I've been really impressed with this. It really brings the fluidity to this device that it needs. So hopefully we'll see this start rolling out on other devices, or perhaps they'll roll straight up from gingerbread to Jelly Bean as opposed to ice cream sandwich. You can see a couple of things here. New notifications bar, you've got a couple of new things. Settings slightly different here with the way Google accounts are displayed. But then again, in here, notifications bar very different. The notifications are different as well. And then you can just see the fluidity here when I go in and out of things. Take a look at the transition effects, things like that, how it comes up out of the corner of the display as opposed to the way it did on the older Nexus software running Android 4.0. So you've got a power button over here, power button, 3.5mm headphone jack and micro USB charging port at the bottom, volume rocker over here, camera on the back, and then, like I said, a nice kind of texturized battery door over here. Both of these are Samsung devices. So they both have kind of the same build quality, and it's going to be one of those love or hate things. You're going to be either probably an HTC fan that loves that metal, loves that premium build quality, or you may be a Samsung fan that likes the plastic build quality because it's just easier to maintain. And that's, if you drop it, you run less of a risk of damaging it, denting it, whatever the case may be. So this is an unlocked version. You do not get any applications out of the gate outside of typical Google stuff like Google+, and then of course the Playbooks. In Android 4.1, you get a new option called Play Magazines, which you can see in the Google Store here, or Google Play rather. Let's go back and find Google Play, go to Play Store. And you got books and movies and TV as well. You can now buy movies, buy TV, and so they've rebranded that. But when you go to Google Play here, you'll see that Magazines is a new addition in Jelly Bean. A new option here, Google Now, which is a nice little search tool where I can come in here. Huge benefit, Google search has been revamped on Jelly Bean, so you can come in here and say something like, what's the weather in San Francisco?
It's 57 degrees and overcast in San Francisco.
And the cards, you'll notice, look a lot like Siri and very similar there. So it's intended to provide that fluidity and intended to provide kind of those pretty fonts that we've seen on other devices. So you got the weather here, and I can scroll out and always access my search results, but it's intended to be a smart system where a couple of hours from now I'll come in here to the notifications and I'll see San Francisco weather right there. So and I can have that changed wherever I'm at. It will auto GPS. Currents is something new as well in Jelly Bean, and just to give you a quick highlight, if you want to see the full changes in Jelly Bean, check out my walkthrough video. But I just want to show you a couple of things that I thought were really neat, and I can't believe I just said really neat on camera, but you get the idea, really neat in Jelly Bean. So article loading up right now, and then of course I've got this over here, 7 home screens. Nice widgets as well, relatively nice. Got a San Francisco weather widget here. Or I should say just weather in general. It's not specific to San Francisco. You have a Flipboard widget, and I've been very impressed with Flipboard, and we'll go ahead and get started. I don't even want to do that. That works. I just want to show you what Flipboard looks like. It's a really nice, clean news application, so I can come into cover stories. Let's just take a look at that, and you can see all these different stories. 5th birthday for the iPhone, so we'll come in here and load that, and you can see it presents in a really nice look and feel here, and I can scroll through and access that particular story. So it's nice if you want to get a nice, really pretty, functional way to access your stories, you can do it that way. Currents is taking too long. We'll come back to that later in the video, and that's because of AT&T in San Francisco. My apologies. And so I'll come in here and take a look at messaging, and you can see the interface. So obviously, take a look over here. Still, it seems more polished to me over on the Galaxy S3. From a consumer standpoint, this is more polished. From a tech nerd standpoint, you're probably going to like Jelly Bean because it's a little bit more true to Android roots. So over here, Jelly Bean keyboard, I should say, looks a lot like the ice cream sandwich keyboard, but we're going to call it Jelly Bean keyboard. Transition effects about the same, and they have that kind of delay in there. And at least they intended for that delay. So when you transition it over, you don't transition too quickly, and it accidentally shifts it into landscape mode. So over here, Samsung's keyboard out of the gate, and then of course you have the option to go over here and change stuff, although all you have is Google Voice typing because it has kind of a swipe prediction type thing built in to the Samsung keyboard. And of course you can turn that off. Not a huge fan of Samsung's keyboard, but it is better over on this device. Probably a combination of the larger display and of course a newer version of said keyboard, but all in all pretty impressive over there. So over here, quick Hang on, this is probably not right. Let's do this. A quick brown fox is happy. Quick brown fox is happy, or us happy, whatever. And then I have my 3 on-screen buttons down here with recent applications here, whereas to access it over here, I can access it that way and then go into the task manager and take a look at what my 2 gigabytes of RAM are doing. So over here, HSPA plus, 42 megabits per second. Over here, HSPA plus, and then we'll take a look at a couple of other things before we break for the video. For part 2, I want to show you one other thing, and that's the camera. I'm actually going to jump into this in part 1, mix it up a little bit. 8 megapixel camera over on the Galaxy S3, 5 megapixel camera on the Galaxy Nexus, although you do get some revised camera settings over here, camera application settings, I should say, where you can scroll easily, much like Windows Phone, from the gallery to your active camera. In terms of camera settings, the winner is the Galaxy S3. Much better camera, in my opinion, based on my testing, and also I love the setting, the functionality of this camera. I have single shot, burst shot, buddy photo share, share shot, so I can go into a party, for example, and let's say I have 5 friends. We all take 10 pictures. If we're on share shot, we can share those pictures, and we'll all have 50 pictures when we leave the party if we're all connected on Wi-Fi, which is a really cool little feature. And then, of course, you have go to video, and when you shoot video, you have the ability to take still pictures as well. Little things like that. Burst shot's really nice if you're watching a soccer game or some sort of sports thing and you want to take some quick pictures. The picture quality over here is fantastic. So we'll take a picture of another Galaxy S3. I just want to take a picture focusing on the logo. Forgive me, this desk is pretty shiny too, so these pictures may not come out as well as I'd like them to, but we'll come in here and see AT&T, and then over here, a nice quick shutter shot. We'll go in here, let's focus. And still a relatively clean picture, despite the fact that it's a 5 megapixel camera as opposed to an 8 megapixel camera. A little bit better over on the Galaxy S3. Not too bad on the Galaxy Nexus, although I wouldn't, if your camera is your priority, I would say go with the Galaxy S3 if that's your primary feature you're most interested in.